So let's bring up our first quarterback here. Um, this is one oh wait, let's see. Let's talk about CJ Stroud first because you're an Ohio State fan. You've got to watch him over the course of 2 years. I do
Mhm.
not like Ohio State, and I haven't said that up to now. So sorry if I've offended you, but I
No, no, not at all.
I was so happy when they lost to Michigan, and that to me was just made my college football year, mainly because of the fan fallout. But that was
Hmm.
that's my deal. But I do have to say, C.J. Stroud, the thing I like the most about him, obviously his accuracy is good, his decision making is good, but you can see there's a huge difference from his offense in year one than year two. His game in Michigan, the first year, he just did not know what to do with the pass rush. He didn't know what to do with blitzing. He didn't know what to do under pressure as well. And then you go to
Well,
the game.
to
Sorry,
be
going.
no, it's okay. I'm sorry. To be fair though, that Michigan team had Aiden Hutchinson in it. It had
Ojabo.
the other kid, yeah, Ojabo in
Yeah.
it,
No,
and
they're
yeah.
loaded.
So
Yeah.
that front was loaded. Yeah.
But like you could look at his tape in the first year and it's like, okay, he makes nice throws when he's open. He makes, some good decision making, but when it's up in his face, he doesn't do a great job. Then you see in year two, he had almost the whole playbook opened up to him. And then the game in Georgia, he was taking it in the face and dropping dimes. And that's a big stage to do that with everything on the line. Obviously, they didn't come up with the win, but man, like that performance, I was like, okay, I'll be honest. I like CJ Stroud for the Colts now, man. So that was hard to do because I'm just not an Ohio State fan. But that's what I really like about CJ Stroud is he grew, and you could see like a legitimate difference if you watch one tape versus the other. So, but since you're the Ohio State fan, you're the master here. What are your thoughts on CJ Stroud?
I really like CJ. I like CJ as a person. I think CJ is an incredible kid. Like he has great character. Like I don't think any of that will ever be a concern. Like I think, and he's got a little moxie to him too. Like he's got a little cockiness to him. So and I like that. Like I want that in my quarterback. Like I want my quarterback to think that he's the best player on the field every time he steps foot on the field. And I feel like that's what CJ brings. And even going as far back as when Justin Fields was at Ohio State and CJ came in for some mop up duty. The kid from then and the kid that you were talking about that played against Georgia are like light years apart. So like that is a great sign too. It shows that he's very coachable. He's very like hungry to learn and he wants to be better. And he wants to do better. And during the games that we've lost in those 2 years, he's always constantly, talked about he's the kind of person who wants to improve on the mistakes. And it was his fault that things weren't the way that they were, even though some receivers were flat out just dropping passes. And
Zach
he would always
Wilson.
say, right. And he would always say, I have to do a better job of getting him the ball. I have to put better touch on the ball and make better decisions and things like that. So I love that aspect of his game. The one thing that I'm concerned about from him is that he needs a good infrastructure to succeed at the NFL level. I think that he's a better Dwayne Haskins, and that comp it might rub some people the wrong way, but what he did at Ohio State is similar to what Dwayne Haskins did at Ohio State. He had a bunch of playmakers around him. He made good decisions. He got the ball to where they needed to be, and his stats were, a lot of yak yardage and a lot of elite playmakers making plays for him. And I feel like CJ Stroud had the same type of setup at Ohio State. So now coming into our team, we have a lot of young playmakers, and I think that it could work in our system, but in order for him to be fully realized, we would have to work on the offensive line a great deal. We would have to get him a great deal of pass blocking. We'd have to let him just manage games and let him just distribute the ball. And I am not sure that we're going to be able to do that right away. Granted, he has shown the ability to make some plays with his legs and move around and things like that. But there's still some things that I would like to see between now and the actual and draft day. There's some things in the processes that I would like to see before I have a more concrete picture of CJ Stroud. But I like him as an athlete. I think he's a good fit, but we would have to help him, a decent amount if we were to bring him in.
Yeah, I think that's very fair criticism. I feel like of CJ Stroud. I think the one thing too to mention, he's 6'3", right? If I'm not mistaken. So
Something like that,
he's
yeah.
got like a little bit of a bigger body, and
Hmm.
I think that kind of leads me into kind of the 1A 1B conversation with Bryce Young in the public's eye, right? Bryce Young is either head and shoulders above everyone, or in real life he's head and shoulders below everyone because he's so short. Um, the thing that I get nervous about with Bryce Young, and I'll be saying this throughout the whole offseason until I'm proven otherwise in the regular season, but Bryce Young plays like a 5'10" Carson Wentz, and Carson Wentz is injured every single year, and you got a body that's not as big as a 6'4" Carson Wentz, and to me, I was watching the Tennessee game and he had a hell of a game, but like there's like 7 or 8 times where he threw the ball and he was just pulverized into the ground, or he was pulverized into the sideline. Like he was just taking hits like he had 9 lives. And to me, that's just extremely concerning. Forget everything about his great ability. You put his body or his mind and his ability into a bigger quarterback, I would say fine, he's worth the risk. But if he pulls up at sub 5'10" or 5'10 and a half, like I I feel like he's just too small to play the way that he does.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, but I tend to look at it more in a in a bigger vacuum than that. So when it comes to players that are anomalies, like players who are ridiculously small or players who might be like slight, things like that, you have to look at what it is that they can do, and you have to be honest with yourself. If we were to draft Bryce Young, we would have to, as an organization, sit in that room and look at each other and think to ourselves, there's a chance that he's going to get hurt. There's a chance that he's going to be hurt often. And we would have to be okay with that. It would have to be a situation where the reward would be so high for him that the risk of him getting hurt, we'd be okay with it every single game. But if we can wrap our minds around that, we can make it work because we've seen short guys be successful in the NFL. Granted, those guys also do get hurt, but I think that keeping yourself safe and things like sliding and running out of bounds, they put a higher emphasis on player safety at the NFL level, especially for the quarterbacks. So if the quarterback is already small, I think that they would do their best to try and keep him protected as much as they could. And I also think that there are things that we can do design wise and in plays and certain concepts that we can use to move the pocket, get him out in space so that way he's not facing all these rushers and he doesn't have to stand in the pocket.
All right, sorry, we had some technical difficulties. I fat fingered a button and ended our video when we got into some really good conversation about Anthony Richardson. So we were just talking about Bryce Young. If you're watching the video, and this is going to be kind of a hard cut into Anthony Richardson. So sorry about that, but let's just bring up the man, Anthony Richardson. What I was trying to say in our great conversation off screen is that if you look at Anthony Richardson, you can have a really frustrating time this offseason because if you look at his highlights, you come away just, man, like this is the dude, trade everything in the farm, number one overall, we got our guy. And I think that would be really easy to say based off of his highlights. But what becomes frustrating is everything else that you watch from Anthony Richardson. If you go into his film tape like I've done, I haven't watched every single throw down and everything like that, so that's on me. But if you get there and you watch Anthony Richardson, you're gonna wonder like, how is he missing these dudes? How is he missing dudes that are on the sideline, open, like college open? Not even, NFL open is a whole different discussion. But this dude, he can go and miss, 2 passes in the same set of downs, and the next one's a home run. And that's the thing that's going to make so many people be like, we need Anthony Richardson. Forget his ceiling and his he can throw it far and he can run it fast. His ability on the field is just head and shoulders above a lot of quarterbacks right now. when he's at his highest. But we got to reel in and also look what his actual tape is, and then you're just like, man, like if only he did X, Y, and Z, he would be, he would be the next dude. So to me, that's Anthony Richardson. But who's Anthony Richardson to you?
Well, to me, Anthony Richardson he's a flip of a coin. Heads is extremely dynamic, and tails is you don't really think that he should be playing quarterback. Just some plays, and I think all of those plays are just fundamentals. He feels to me like a guy who played a lot of backyard football growing up, so he just he dominated athletically. I've seen a few of those guys in my high schools as well, where it's just to them they drop back and then they run, or they run around for a little while and then they find the open guy and they make the pass. But when you force them to stay in the pocket and make reads and do some of those things, they're inconsistencies. I'm not saying that he can't do it, but and his passing numbers speak to that as well. It says that he can't consistently do it at the level that we would like for him to do it. But with great coaching, with great play design and a really good system, I think he'd be able to flourish. You wouldn't ask him to do much, and that's why I think he'd be perfect in Indy actually, because Shane Steichen just worked with Jalen Hurts, and I know Jalen Hurts was a much better passer than AR coming out, but it shows you that there's possibility for him to get there. That Shane Steichen would be the guy that would be able to draw that talent, that ability in him, would help him, hone it in and bring it in some. But the main problem that a lot of Colts Twitter is having, or the people that I interact with are having, is picking AR at number 4. A lot of people think that that's too high of a price to pay for such a project, but the rewards could be very high as well. In my opinion, I think it all depends on who's available. If the other 3 guys are gone at 4, you don't really have a choice but to take AR there. But if one of the other guys who is more ready than he is available, then I would think that Indy weighs out their options and they would go with the more polished passing prospect. But if that prospect happens to be Bryce Young, it becomes a much tougher decision because of the size.
Yeah. I think with Anthony Richardson, I feel like it's all a matter of the context and where we draft him and everything. It also matters who we have as a quarterback on the roster when he comes onto the team as well. Do we still
Mm-hmm.
have Matt Ryan, which I don't think we will? Do we still have Nick Foles, which I don't think we will? Who are we going to be bringing in? Is it just going to be Sam Ellinger who is running the show until one of these quarterbacks are ready? So I think that's interesting. I think a lot of AR-15 is context and projection, and so it's just so hard to say, yes, this is my guy, pound the table on him, and you trade the farm for him. So that to me is Anthony Richardson. I wanted to bring up just the other guy that I think we have been kind of talking about that can end up in this discussion for either the number 4 overall pick or potentially a trade up. And that's this dude, Will Levis. I heard that he drinks his coffee with mayo stirred into it, so I don't know if I want him based off of that. But the the thing with Will Levis is he has the size, he has the strength, he's got the arm. You can pull up a Josh Allen throw almost any game that he's in, and you're just like, man, wow, like great throw. But he's also older. Yeah, I think he's 23, 24 years old. He
Mm-hmm.
transferred into Kentucky from Penn State. And, one of the good things about him is he did bring Kentucky, not him himself, but he was a part of a Kentucky team that surprised a lot of people the last 2 years. And they had a lot of weeks where they were in the top 10 of all of college. And doing that in the SEC as a basketball school is really hard to do. So Will Levis, we got to give him a lot of credit with where credit's due. He runs a pro style offense, and he can make some pretty bomb throws. But there's are some things where it's like, okay, this guy still has some development to be where Bryce Young and CJ Stroud are just in running the offenses, and he's older than them. And so that kind of just makes a little bit of a hesitation on the prospect end of it. But when you get him, you're like, man, this guy can do anything right now. And, that's exciting in and of himself. But I don't know if we have Will Levis in each of our own top 3, but I think that's where most people are expecting the Colts to go because size, strength, arm ability, pro style offense, all the positives that we just listed, and age can be kind of worked through in the NFL because you can last until you're 35 if you're damn good. So that's kind of Will Levis. To me, what are your thoughts on Will Levis?
Yeah, the age thing was going to be the first point that I was actually going to bring up was that, quarterbacks are playing well into their 30s now. Some of them, Brady into his 40s. So, it's possible.
Yeah,
If it's been done before, it can always be done again. So I'm not really too concerned about the age. And I believe Joe Burrow came out a little bit older than other quarterback prospects as well. So I don't think that the age should be like that huge of a factor. But I get what people are saying though.
yeah,
But as far as Will Levis, I always like to think about the guys or the athletes who were going to be top 5 draft picks before the last season that they played. Because 2 seasons ago, Will Levis was a consensus top 5 draft pick. Like there were people gushing all over him, talking about his intangibles, his leadership, his moxie, the way he carries himself, the way he can play football, the way he rushes the ball, his athletic ability. So all of that didn't just disappear in one season. It changed because of his situation, of course. He had a different OC. He lost Wandale Robinson. He lost a few other weapons. And this past season, he was literally the only thing that kept Kentucky relevant. He was the only player on that team, and it showed a lot during their bowl game when he didn't play and Kentucky couldn't even score a point. I don't even think they scored a point, or they scored like
wow,
7 points. They scored something really
yeah,
ridiculously low, but they were getting blown out by Iowa.
yeah,
So
Iowa,
right, so Will Levis is still as good as he was 2 years ago. There are some things that I think he even improved on in those 2 years, and I think he's learned a lot in his situation in his last season as well. I think that he carried himself very professionally for a guy who was on a team who he pretty much knew wasn't going anywhere. He knew wasn't going to do anything, but he came out there every single week and he gutted it out. And regardless of the national media, throwing salt on his name and talking about him and the things that he was doing, he's like, I'm playing with half of a team here. So, and there's not really, he didn't make any excuses. He
yeah,
just
in
came
the
out and balled.
SEC,
In the SEC, right?
yeah,
So he just came out and he put it on the line every game and stuff like that. Like you respect stuff like that because that talks more about his mental makeup than it does everything else. It talks more about his, like he's not as fragile of a human being. Like he's a leader. That's
yeah,
what I've heard a lot about him so far.
yeah,
And as far as the tools, he has all the tools. There isn't anything that he can't do. Everything else is all about coaching, fine tuning, and getting him to be, as close to amazing or as close to perfect as he can possibly be. And that's why with Will Levis, the only thing that I would like to know is his work ethic.
yeah,
That is the only thing for me because if he has the kind of work ethic where he's the first guy in, last guy out, he's bringing guys along, he's a great teammate, he's setting up throwing sessions and he's doing all of the things that, just regular coaching can't teach you or regular coaching can't provide you. His hunger, his drive, how great does he want to be? Because if out of all of these guys, if Will Levis were to be the one to have that dog in him, to have that switch in him, to have that thing that makes you want to be perfect, he could be an all-time great. Like he's physically that talented.
yeah. And that's the thing that's nice about being top four rather than five, six, or seven, like we could have potentially have been with the last 2 weeks of our season panning out. And so, being at number four, we have an easier road to get one of these four guys. And I think we walk away with one of these four guys. Tanner McKee is someone that people talk about, and Hendon Hooker and stuff like that. I don't think there's a whole lot wrong with them. It's just they're not the top dogs right now, and I just don't see them surpassing these guys just with an off season, in the draft process. So that's kind of a good look at what we're going to be doing this offseason with drafting, keeping in mind Shane Steichen, Chris Ballard, all the key players in the situation. If you were to put a bet on it, would you say the Colts Who would you put your money on player wise that the Colts draft, and would you trade up for him or not?
Okay. I think I have two names that I would put my money on, and that's Will Levis, one,
Okay.
and I think it would be Bryce Young second.
Okay, so you're hedging with
And
Bryce Young.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm hedging. I'm
Okay.
hedging with Bryce Young,
Okay.
and I think if we were to jump up to one, I think it would absolutely be Will Levis, and
Okay.
if we were to stay at four, it would depend on which one of those two guys still remain on the board. And if by for some weird reason that all three of them are gone, then we'd have no choice, of course, but to select AR.
Yeah.
But I would think that Ballard's perfect candidate, perfect pick is Will Levis.
Okay. Sweet. I like that. I don't know, man. It's hard to really put it on and just like put some money on it, but I would say I'm thinking it's CJ Stroud. I think his accuracy and things like that are things that are just going to make that transition in the NFL just that much easier. And we can build around CJ Stroud, I think, pretty quickly. We got offensive line. Yeah, I think we got great pieces. Bernhard Ryman showed up strong near the end. And, we have some other things that we can do to foster a good offensive line. So I think that is something that could definitely happen. And I think if I'm hedging, I think Will Levis is my hedge there too because of what you're just saying. You did that very well. So that kind of wraps up what we're expecting on the draft. We can probably put out some more as we learn more in the pro days and the combine.